Hello students, today we are doing lesson 6.4, parallel lines and transversals, and we're looking at how angles that are formed by the parallel lines and the transversals are congruent to one another. Okay, as a review, you guys remember vertical angles here. You know that if these would be vertical angles and then these two would be vertical angles. These are angles that are made when two lines cross like this. So for vertical angles, these two angles are congruent, and then these two angles are congruent. Okay? But this lesson we're talking about parallel lines and a transversal. So here we have parallel lines L and M. I'm going to draw my transversal T. And what I see here is I have one set of vertical angles up here and I have another set of vertical angles down here. And I am going to go ahead and I am going to label these 1 through 8. And then we're going to look at the vertical angles and mark them as they're congruent. So 1 and 4 are vertical angles. So 1 and 4 are congruent. We have 2 and 3 are vertical angles, so they're congruent. 5 and 8 are vertical angles, so they are also congruent. And lastly, we have 6 and 7, which are congruent. So here we have two parallel lines with one transversal, and it gives us 4 pairs of congruent vertical angles. Okay? Now when we're working with parallel lines and transversals, we also have some other types of angles that are going to be congruent to one another. Another type are alternate interior angles. So alternate means that they're on different sides of the transversal. So here we have one side of the transversal, here we have another. Interior means that they are on the inside of the parallel lines. So alternate interior angles means that we're talking about these angles here and we're matching up the ones on opposite sides of the transversal. Alternate interior angles are congruent. So we know that 3 is congruent with 6. And we also know that 4 is congruent with 5. Okay? Now we also know that alternate exterior angles are also congruent. So again, alternate means they're on opposite sides of the transversal. Exterior means they're on the outsides of the parallel lines. So that would be like angle 2 and angle 7. You can see that these are both acute, and then these are both obtuse, and they're both they both happen to be congruent with one another. Okay. And then the last thing we have are corresponding angles. The corresponding angles, it just says that angles that are located in the same side of the transversal and the same side of the parallel lines are congruent. So angle 1 is on the left and it's on the top of this parallel lines. 5 is on the left and on the top. They're the same position, so those are congruent. 2 and 6 are congruent. 3 and 7 are congruent. And 4 and 8 are congruent. So when we're doing our lesson today, there's a lot of different relationships between these angles. We'll do a quick review. You can see that vertical angles are congruent. And we can see that alternate interior angles are also congruent. So like if I wanted to know which angles are congruent to angle 3, I could look at this and say, well, you know what? Angle 3 is a vertical angle to 2, so these two are congruent. And then I have angle 3 and angle 6, I'll do it over here. And then angle 3 and angle 6 are alternate interior angles, so they are also congruent. And then we also know that we have some corresponding angles, so 3, oops, that's vertical, sorry. Let me find my corresponding. And then 3 corresponds to 7, so 3 is also congruent to 7. So in this diagram right here, 3 is congruent to 2, 3 is congruent to 6, and 3 is congruent to 7. So there's 3 different angles. So if we knew, like let's say they gave us the measure of angle 3, we know the measurement of angle 2 and the measurement of angle 7 because they're all congruent, okay? If they give you, let's say, angle 3 and they want you to figure out angle 1, another relationship that we have, so I got to get my marker open, would be linear pairs. So let's say that I have, I'm just going to quick draw, sorry, this. I know that if I have a 3 here, 3 is going to be, let's do this, linear pairs. Linear pairs are when you have two angles, so I'm going to say the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B equals 180 degrees. So 3 plus this angle can equal 180 because that's a linear pair, and then 3 plus this angle here could equal 180. So if I knew, let's say, that angle 3 was 60 degrees, I know that this is going to be 60 degrees also because they're vertical angles. But if I don't know what 1 and 4 are, I can say, well, this is a linear pair. This, and you know, I have all these linear pairs here, so I can just say 60 degrees plus the measure of angle 1 equals 180 degrees. Subtract 60 from both sides. Little degrees mark. The measure of angle 1 equals 120 degrees. All right, and that's how you could use vertical angles and linear pairs to help you figure out the values of these other two angles. All right, I will talk to you guys in a little bit. Bye.